tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Welcome back, Clone Club, to another AfterBuzz after show for Orphan Black. It is episode 5 of season 3, Scarred by Many Past Frustrations.
I feel scarred by many past frustrations, and a current one that Anna Koppel is still not here.
Anna Koppel, our wonderful 4th Clone Club member here, I am betting money that she will be here next week and with us for the rest of the season, the back 5. So, Anna, don't let me down.
Don't let him down. I am specifically not betting money because I feel like you will be here. So don't make me regret not betting.
Well, I'm Will Link, as you probably maybe know. Next to me, Mr. Matt Lieberman.
Hello, hello.
And Megan Salinas.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
None of us are Anna Koppel. We can only strive to be. We can only hope to be.
I strive to be Anna Koppel every day of my damn life.
Well, I think every episode of Orphan Black should strive to be this episode.
It was so good.
This was my favorite of the season, and I feel like this is also who knows what Tatiana does later in the season, but I feel like some of those scenes between Sara and Hellena on this episode are like, that's what you submit for the Emmys this year. Like, she was doing some of her finest work, I personally thought.
Oh, absolutely. I thought that, playing a scene opposite yourself is difficult at any time, but to have the level of emotion, the heightened stakes, to be where they are, this environment, I just thought it was thrilling. And I think it's especially significant that this episode was so good, having no Allison in it.
Yes.
And that all of the moving parts were very well crafted.
I would agree.
No, I can't add anything to that. Like, everything in this episode was so well done. I'm not going to say that I'm not upset by where we're left at
it's
the end of this episode.
upsetting twists and turns.
And I was upset that other people who were theorizing things earlier on, that they were right, I was wrong.
Were they right about poison sperm?
No, they were talking about how Hellena was believing the Castor lies, where I was like, she'll never believe that, you know.
You get put in a prison, you believe what makes sense.
I know, but
Helena's been through the ringer here, and has her whole life. And, actually, there's a push and pull within Hellena at this point.
She's very conflicted.
Yeah, and we might as well just start at the start. We're talking about it already. Sara, the episode opens, and we kind of knew it was going to be this way, but I didn't know it would start right off the bat. Sara is in there. We see Hellena. She's got extra shackles on her feet now, and she's back to, also cutting herself a little bit to make herself feel better, as is Helena's tradition, I guess. And
Poopuk tells
what was
her,
it? Guilty pleasures?
Guilty pleasures,
yeah.
And that's her little way of escaping back into that kind of self-flagellation that she does. And then, of course, the little scorpion.
Yeah, Poopuk. Can I ask a question?
Yes. And I have a feeling I know what this is, but yes.
Okay, so Poopuk leaves Helena's cell and walks into Sara's cell. Now, Sara never necessarily sees Poopuk, but there's Poopuk next to Sara. Can Sara see Poopuk too? Or is Poopuk real?
Poopuk is just a manifestation of Helena's imagination, which then makes you wonder why she would go into the next cell.
Well, as I was saying it, I thought of a writer's cheat that would make it make sense. Because she's got that little hole with the grill over it that they use to talk. So what if she leaned down to look at Sara through that, and that is
and it was
Poopuk.
a way for Poopuk looking in there too. It in That's a good cheat, and I'm sure
Yeah.
someone in Clone Club is spinning that right now. Someone in the right side, because honestly, it was probably just a really cool visual way. to
Yeah,
show.
exactly.
That's the easy answer, but yeah, I want Sarah to see it. I know she won't, and I know that's not physically possible, but I want a scene of that.
Well, I want a whole spin-off series of Hellena and Poopuk. You know, that'd be great too.
Add it to the list of spin-offs from this show.
But it is, like you said, Megan, it's disappointing to realize that right away, Hellena basically calls Sara out and said, "You put me in here." And, you know, look, Helena's always going to have a few screws loose, just of who she is. And it's an uphill battle for Sara to try to explain this. And Helena's really just not listening. She's shutting down. But that's also kind of another thing that I loved about having both these characters together. You got to see a lot of similarities between them. Because Sara also gets stubborn and shuts people down.
Yeah,
Sara
that's what happened with Mrs. S.
Yes, exactly. Sara also acts really indignant about things. The great moment I thought was when Hellena threatened Paul, and then Sara just like jumps on the bandwagon. Yeah, maybe it'll be you next time, Paul. Like she just dives right in. They really are. I mean, they are sisters, but this episode really got to showcase how similar they can be.
That's true. I mean, other than the accent and the fact that, you know, they grew up in such radically different ways, they do actually react to things very similarly. They have that same energy. They're both rebels. I mean, you look at who Sara was before any of this even happened. She was a criminal. She would run. She's very loose kind of moral. She didn't care. There's a lot of Hellena and Sara. And a lot of Sara and Hellena.
Yeah, and this episode, I was like, I can understand, and actually, I was feeling really gratified with Hellena giving her a little grief, because even if it wasn't directly Sarah's fault, she probably could assume that, okay, whoever did this did it on Sarah's behalf, you know, did it for Sara, even though Sara didn't approve. So I didn't mind her giving her grief. Abandoning her, though, and saying now we're even, that crossed the line for me. I was like, no, don't do it.
Well, you know what? Sarah's been so annoyed with Mrs. S for doing this, but at the same time, if Sara had to make the call, at that point Sara had been captured, but if she had to make the call for Kira or Hellena,
it would be Kira.
She would have made the same call, I would think. I mean, maybe she would have tried to find another way to do it, but I think she would have made the exact same call and then worked on a way to get Hellena back. Anyway, so I think Hellena does. You do have a point with Hellena having some, because it is Sara's people. It is people operating for Sara, and quite frankly, you know, Hellena. Not that Helena's expendable to these people. She's not, but she's off.
A loose cannon. She's a liability. No matter how much you love her, no matter how much she can bring to the table, and no matter how much you care about her because she's your sister, she is a liability. You can't control her. You can't trust her.
You know, I kept thinking that she was getting through to Hellena. There was a lot of stuff early on where just to look on, and I mean, this is the most push-pull we've seen between Hellena and Puka. You know, it's just fun to say.
Poopuk.
Puka is from Anastasia.
And Puka is also those shells that people wear.
It's one of those things that I will never end up. I'll pronounce right on
Puka the puppy.
Puka the puppy from Anastasia.
Oh my god, I'm talking about many years of Puka. Sorry,
never seen it. Never seen it.
Oh, it's real good.
Why it's easier for me to
Don
make that
Bluth, Don Bluth, man. So good.
But we do see that this decision tears her apart, and we don't see her make a break for it. You know, again, not to jump ahead, we don't see her make a break for it, so she could flip-flop. And I don't know if that was kind of a cliffhanger so that they don't actually have to show Hellena going out into wherever it is, and it turns out that they are just in, like, Johannesburg in California and not the Middle East.
Well, she mentioned Mexico.
As an option, yeah.
And that, you know, we kept saying the Middle East, but I guess somewhere on the continent makes a little more
more sense considering how quickly they go to and from the base and back to city.
Yeah. So maybe that is what it is. Although I think someone tweeted us today. Oh God, I can't remember who it was, but said like, oh, it's just a sound stage. Like, what if it literally is
Langley, I think.
Yeah, what if it literally is just a sound stage?
That would make me incredibly happy.
It's where they faked the moon landing.
Yeah,
same place.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, if you guys have any questions, you can use the hashtag ABTV Orphan Black.
ABTV.
Yeah, we'll be checking that hashtag all throughout the week. And actually, we had people for, I think, the first time actually using the hashtag when the episode was airing. So
Yeah.
I kept away from Twitter because I had to watch later.
I know, it was so funny. I noticed I got I've got 5 or 6 notifications here. And I went to look, I'm like, oh my God, it hasn't aired on the West Coast yet. I gotta wait, guys. And at 10, I started responding to things. But, so, Sarah's dragged to Dr. Cody, and it is a little interesting. I wonder how, I guess you do everything necessary to try to save these brothers, but, they have a lot of research now. They have Helena. They have the bones of the dead baby, the dead Johansson baby.
Now they have Sarah.
Paul is going to be upset. They're all clearly worried about when the Major gets here. He's going to be mad.
Major Dearden.
Yeah. And how necessary is it to even keep Sarah? Really?
I like understand the way she put it, that they're valuable specimens, and scientifically speaking, there's a lot that you can do with that. That, on the other hand, I just don't trust her. Because this is the same woman who justified, keeping a guy alive while they experimented on his brain.
Can I throw out something horrible?
Go ahead, do it.
Always. It wouldn't be an Orphan Black AFTERBUZZ unless you...
Super. Here we go. So, the clone boys have poison sperm.
Yeah.
They have poison sperm, and female clones aren't supposed to be able to have babies. I wonder if they wonder whether or not they would be immune to poison sperm. However, they are brother and sister, so that would be clone cest. Poison clone cest. Sponsored by your American or Canadian government.
That was far more terrible than I thought it could be.
But you know what? I believe it.
Plausible.
I buy it.
Easily
They
plausible.
don't have to actually have... They could just, take an egg and a sperm.
Still
They
gross.
could do it in a test tube.
Yeah, they don't
gross.
actually have to have sex.
No, but it's still gross. It's still terrible.
Gross. I know.
Yeah, well...
It's still genetic inbreeding.
I know.
Shame on you, Matt Lieberman.
I'm the one who has to live with this brain.
Aw.
Hey, look, we already know that the Castor clones have been hitting up.
Yeah, they've been
Lita
intimate
clones,
with clones. Exactly. Gross.
So gross.
Well,
Although, what is the purpose of, because they literally have notebooks of women.
Well, now we know what the logbooks are for, that they're
Yeah.
specifically for the women that they have relations with, because they need to know if this person dies, we need to make them disappear.
yeah, we need to know what happens to these. Who knows what we're just scratching the surface of what's going to happen to these people.
But,
Poor Gracie.
it's just terrible, because it's was this intentional on their part to be to send them out? And I imagine that initially, probably not, but that once this started happening, if it was initial to be oh, let's see if that happens again, and then to keep doing it so that they send these clones out into the world to copulate and then see if it's the same result every single time.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think that the poison blood sperm is why Gracie lost her baby? That because they had sex and because that was in her system, her body automatically flushed the baby?
That's an excellent idea. And you know what? I buy that as well, because we don't know what's going... When you have... blood sperm, clone blood sperm, going into we
Clone
don't know
blood
how it reacts, and it's clearly not healthy.
Well, and
Right,
we have no idea what it's doing to these women.
Right.
Just that it's having
And
terrible effects.
Here's an important thing to point out. Cody and her researchers have no idea that Gracie has lost this baby.
Yes.
They're not aware of it. So if they were to try to put the male clone DNA inside of Sara or Hellena, probably Sara, because Helena's got a baby on the way, God knows what that'll do to Sara, because it did reject clone DNA.
Now, the other thing with this is, we don't know that it doesn't necessarily can't impregnate you, this blood. It might give you some...
I have a question. Go ahead and finish your thought.
No. Go, please.
Well, obviously, the reason why all the female clones are barren is to prevent procreation, and that's what causes their illness. why wouldn't the clone creators
similar-
do the same thing? But
Because
instead of
men should be able to
instead of just like castrating them or making them infertile or whatever, or like sterile, instead of just doing that, what if they somehow made it so that the victim would be the person that they had sex with, they would die, and that way there wouldn't be a child resulting from it, so that
No,
they
make
don't
them
have to worry
infertile.
about
That makes much more sense to just make them infertile.
Or that it's that they didn't. This was an unintended side effect of doing whatever they did to their sperm
The
to make sure they
artificial
can't.
sequences.
Yeah.
This was the bloodshot eyes and whatever the hell else happens to you next is an unintended consequence of whatever they did to them.
What if they did something to try to make them better soldiers? Like they did some sort of DNA tampering in the same way that they tampered with the dye,
They probably did. I mean, that's what you would do, right? If I was creating super soldier clones, that's what I would do. I would make them killing machines, the ultimate warriors, like Marc. But
I would make them all ultimate warriors like the WWE's Ultimate Warrior.
yeah, you feel like
would make more sense, right?
you would feel like they would all look like The Rock or something like that,
Right?
You know? But they gotta
just a
blend.
guy.
They gotta
They're just-
blend.
Yeah, they got
This is-
blend in.
Well, you know what? Speaking of military men, Paul does come to see Sarah, and this was actually one of my favorite Sarah Paul scenes,
Dirty
maybe of
Paul.
the whole season, because he defends his position where it's like, look, I'm just looking out for my military family here. I'm looking out for these guys.
You'll
Like,
come to recognize that I'm doing for them what you do for your sisters.
yes. And he brings up, again, Helena, who, like you said, is a liability, is a loose cannon, and has killed people, just as many people, if not more probably, than Rudy and some of these other Castor clones. So I thought that was a great time where you saw Paul really kind of turn Sarah's logic around on her, but she wasn't hearing it, and then her and Helena threatened her, and then it was a free-for-all, you know?
I did like Paul going, you just had to stop. You just had to, stop sticking your nose in
Yeah.
things. You could have, because he, to an extent, has done a lot within his power to try to keep Sarah out of things, to try to keep her safe.
Yeah.
And of course, like you said, Sarah's not having any of it because, of course, she's going to go after her sister. Of course, she's going to try to get to the bottom of things. But it's just really funny to see that frustration. Like, come on, I'm doing everything I can to try to keep you out of this. And you just keep coming back in.
It's true. Yeah, you can't. She just keeps showing up. And you would think, though, also getting back to your first point about Helena, about not believing it, you would think that would be enough to sell Helena on it. That Paul, because Paul basically admits that, he was the one who made the deal and stuff, and it wasn't. I mean, he doesn't say it wasn't Sarah, but there's enough inferred in the way Helena's looking through the grating at this conversation. But again, it's that push-pull within her that, maybe she can't even. It's to the point where maybe she can't even believe that she's been crapped on her whole life so much that, well, of course my sestra would sell me out. So maybe it's like almost a self-fulfilling prophecy for her. Yeah. The other great scene I thought was when Paul talks to Cody, because you see now cracks in Paul. Like maybe Sarah is the one person who can make him defy his military orders and things like that. And not just, I didn't sense it was just his feelings towards Sarah at that point. I think he started to morally question what they were doing for the first time.
Well, because there's just that quick little scene of him screwing in the screw where Parsons was being kept right before he's looking through the logbooks. So you can see the wheels turning in Paul's head where he's just like, maybe this isn't right.
I don't know.
I think he even said to Cody, I think he even said the line, like what are we doing? Like kind of this exasperated way of, there's got to be a better way to do this than keep these women captured here.
Yeah. I think my favorite line of the episode, and this is an episode filled with great dialogue, was actually Cody's line to Sarah when Sarah's resisting getting the blood samples, and she just flat out says, I'm not someone that you can fight, Sarah. And it makes me wonder, I'm so fascinated with the idea of Cody's past. I want to know everything about her, because she's still incredibly enigmatic. At least like with Leaky, we were very aware of who he was. He was a celebrated scientist, a radical.
Yeah, he was a public figure at the very least.
Yeah. What was it in the first? Not a
Neolutionist.
Neolutionist. I always get the confused with Prolethean.
Where did they go? They're the people who were putting messing with their DNA
They had
so that they had animal parts.
Topside. They're all topside.
Yeah.
I guess they're all just still drinking and dancing at a
I
club.
guess.
Look, if I'm a Neolution, I mean that's a party scene. That's where you know.
It's not a political statement.
No. I'd much rather be a Neolutian than a Prolethean.
That's
Neolutionist.
Neolutionist. See, now I'm screwing it up now.
It's okay.
I got it written. It's funny. I have some of these terms are so complicated. I have them all. I always have a cheat sheet that I never look at, but I'm like a Neolutionist. But anyway, Cody's background would be very interesting, and I also wonder how much involvement maybe she has at the beginning of this, like what kind of relationship she might have had to Duncan in the past, like when this program got started. If she was around at that time for it. I don't know. I mean, I'm having trouble figuring out quite how old she is. Maybe it's just because Duncan seems so old and crazy and decrepit, and she doesn't seem nearly that. She seems still pretty viable.
Just because she's not crazy. Not just because she's not crazy doesn't mean that she's not older. She seems like she's in her late 50s, mid 60s. I mean, she smokes cigarettes, so that's going to speed up the aging.
Yeah, and she's out there in the sun all day in Mexico.
Wherever they're at. I find her interesting because she kind of goes back and forth from being a creepy science fiction mad scientist villain to a mother figure, and it makes me wonder if she doesn't kind of have a favorite in Rudy. Like
he gives her that little kiss.
Yeah,
in the
if
episode.
out of all the Castor clones, if he's not her little favorite. And that's why she's willing to sacrifice people like Parsons, and things.
Well, it sounds like Parsons was glitching, though.
Yeah.
Like Paul said, what little time left he had of his life, he sacrificed. And I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that Parsons was like, cut me open, do what you got to do. But then, I've made a huge mistake.
I immediately regret this decision.
Well, you were talking about great dialogue. And Sara, for the first time, really opened up about leaving Kira behind. We know she's felt guilt about leaving Kira, but this was the first time she talked about it, and in her relationship to Mrs. S, watching the kid, which I think was a great scene, because it also kind of, this episode had a lot of great Mrs. S moments too, but it kind of reminded us of the figure that Mrs. S was in Sara's life and in Kira's life, especially since Sara's kind of turned her back to Mrs. S.
And we find out stuff about Mrs. S that even Felix didn't know.
Yeah, about her, about
John
Mr.
Sadler.
S. Yeah.
Yeah, he died in a bar fight. With shears stuck in his neck.
I mean, that's...
Though, do you think that was a lie? Not that he died, but the way in which he died?
I don't know. I mean... Is it one of those things? Because shears sound like such a...
It just feels
big
too
thing.
Simple. Like I don't see it.
Oh, okay. I see what
Like
you're
she's
saying.
not telling the whole truth. It wouldn't be the first time Mrs. S hasn't told the whole truth.
Absolutely. She's caught in a lie. The fact that she never told Felix or Sara that John Sadler died or was killed, and caught in that lie, she spins one that sounds plausible. But to me, I just don't see it.
Let me ask you this. If you introduce that, and you introduce the idea that could be a lie, do you think that he might even be alive?
Oh, no. I think John Sadler is dead, and I'll go one step further. I think he's the original donor.
Whoa.
Like like they're digging through old pictures and they find a picture of, somebody who looks like the Castor clones and her on their wedding day.
I'm just going to throw this out there. We have never seen a picture of Mrs. S when she was young.
So that she's the original Lita?
No, because they would have to be brother and sister.
Because they're supposed to be brother and
They'd
sister.
have to be
And
brother
also
and
at
sister.
that point, she would have been able to probably help Cosima and things like
Yeah,
that. She
no.
probably would have given her bone marrow instead of Kira's.
Yeah, no, she wouldn't have made Kira go through all that.
That's one of the things I love about the show.
You don't know that.
It's one of those shows you throw out a theory and it's like, that is the greatest thing. And then 10 seconds later,
Oh, yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Oh, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
Well,
But you were right. I mean, with Sara, going back to Sara, we find out, because there was always mystery around why she left Kira in the first place. and granted, at the time when the series starts, she's in an abusive relationship. So you think, okay, maybe that was the reason. Maybe it was a safety thing. And then you find out, no, she just didn't want to be tied down. She was running away from responsibility.
Look, I've known people exactly that this is the exact situation, that they had a child young and they kind of skirted a lot of their responsibility, but then they came back to be really good mothers later in life, because luckily they had a good supportive family, which is Mrs. S there. And Mrs. S, we saw her at maybe her most motherly ever in this episode. The way she was dealing with Gracie, even the showing her how to dance and stuff like that. There was a very much a sweetness to her, and you kind of have always seen her butting heads with Sara from the moment the characters have been introduced. So it was really nice to kind of see her, why she did take these kids and why she does feel for these kids.
Can we talk about the Gracie plotline?
Let's talk about, before we get back to Sara, let's get to Gracie.
Yeah, well, just, this took the Allison slot for our lighter storyline this week. And I just thought it was stellar. It's so... I think one of the clearest things to me about this show is I never enjoy it more than when the characters are able to relax for a moment and just be themselves.
And then they have little dance parties.
That's what they usually do when they relax.
Oh my God, Gracie's outfit!
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Stop, girl! She went through all of Sarah's old stuff and she just found the blackest and tiniest things.
I loved immediately the pairing of her and Felix, because they was like the perfect foil for each other.
Yeah.
Both, the first thing he says, "Come on, baby Jesus," it gives him perfect excuse for these lines, but also to bring up actual issues about religion, the Proletheans' religion. Like, he calls her out on you think I'm basically an abomination for being gay and stuff like that.
I love that, while she's sitting, in the corner and he's supposed to be talking quietly to Mrs. S, he's just I don't think she's ready for cult deprogramming.
Yeah, he says it just a little louder.
Well, just the words cult deprogramming. It's I don't think she's ready for cult deprogramming. Not crazy about her.
And it was, I felt like Gracie was really, for someone who's been so sheltered, was really holding her own with Felix. Like, she was being honest about how she felt. Look, she's in shell shock at this point. Even Art basically said, she's having trouble dealing with the fact she was married to a clone. These people she was taught to look at as,
abominations.
Yeah, exactly. And, that their dance party is good. They're drinking, they're drinking, what were they drinking?
Gin and juice. Laid back.
Yeah.
With their minds on their money and their money on their minds.
So they're having a great time, and you just know if characters having too good of a time for too long,
something
it can't
terrible
last.
is going to happen.
And then she collapses. And you think it's going to be something because of the miscarriage still, and it could very well be if that clone blood sperm killed the baby, which I'm certain that's the case. Now I'm certain that's the case. And then I thought the way that was handled well too was creepy, because I almost didn't understand, so Art's following up with this woman, but there's something going on here, and the reveal of maybe they did this to me.
Yeah, it was weird, because she had the sunglasses on, I'm like, who is he even talking to? And it took me a minute to realize, oh, okay, that's her.
Yeah.
And then it's oh God, what is even happening? And I loved the way the editing was in this scene, because we have what's going on with Gracie, and then the reveal with her, and all the while Paul is just flipping through that little book of all
the amount of people. And Marc is, it's funny, we kind of, not that we dismissed it when Marc's they did weird sex stuff or things like that, where it just seemed they're just soldiers out in the town, being guys. But no, was there was weird sex stuff going on, weird experiments.
And it makes me wonder if he, if how much they actually know, if they're just keeping logs because that was their orders, or if they know that when they have sex with somebody, something terrible happens to them, and maybe that was Marc's reluctance to have sex with people in the first place.
Exactly. He was very, even with women he loved, he didn't want to, which makes me think that he knows there's a problem, but he did it anyway. But I can't believe he would hurt her.
That's the thing.
Well, there was no way to, I feel like maybe first of all, he wants to, despite the risks.
Yeah.
And maybe he thought because she was pregnant, it wouldn't
would be
affect
okay.
her. And also, how is he going to be able to say no after she was like insisting over and over that they consummate their marriage? How is he supposed to say no without revealing that he was a clone?
That's true. That's true, because there's no.
Well, he ended
there's
up
no way to
revealing
go.
it right afterwards anyway.
Yeah.
But
Well-
that's what makes me think that at least he didn't know. But I'm not so certain that Rudy and Seth didn't know.
Well, yeah,
I
I
don't know.
think they. Well, none of them are sticking around long enough. If they're, none of them are having any great romances here. If they're sleeping with these women and keeping the journal of it and giving it back to Cody, and then the military's keeping track of these people, then it's possible that none of them know the full effects of what happens to you when you have the clone blood sperm.
I
agree
love
with
Orphan
everything
Black
this man
discussion.
said. the thing with this show always with me, and I feel like Paul flipping through these books kind of is indicative of this, is like just when you think, we have a lot of plot here, a lot of things to remember, a lot of characters, just a lot of stuff going on. They're just like, no, we're going to keep bringing up new stuff. Now there's blood sperm. And it's just sort of like, we have enough with 2 sets of clones, the military, Proletheans, Neolutianists, Rachel, Delphine. It's already
A
a lot.
suburban drug ring.
There's a lot of plot here.
Well, you know what? It's funny. Since the blood sperm is the equivalent of them not being the Lita being able to have babies, we should really be forward thinking anything we've learned about the Lita clone, there's always going to be a flip side to the Castor clone, and I don't know if there's things that we haven't thought of yet.
Good
in
at
that
dancing.
regard. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. That's what we haven't seen the Castor clone. I want to see the dance party with Rudy and Marc.
I want to see Rudy go out to a disco and just disco it up.
And Cody doesn't believe Marc for a second, I'm assuming, about his feelings for Gracie and things
Well,
like
did you
that.
see, she took
Pulled
off the
the-
wedding ring.
Oh.
Just remember, none of it was real.
Yeah. And Marc, I still believe that Marc is going to play a big part in the end game of helping Sara get out of there. But then again, this episode, Paul, like I said, Paul's really thinking. Paul's really thinking about things in a way that Paul usually doesn't. He usually just does his order, or he's hemming and hawing about stuff. He was really thinking in this episode. So maybe he's going to get her out of there.
He's always playing the double agent, and it's only recently that we figured out he was a triple agent the whole time.
Yeah.
So I think what he's really hemming and hawing about is finally picking a side. Because he, his true alliance was shown at the end of season 2 / beginning of season 3.
Yeah.
And I think now that it's really shown what side he's on, I think he's finally questioning, okay, maybe I'm not on the right side.
Well, his true alliance was shown, though. You could argue his true alliance was shown to Sara, too, because he made a deal to save her. Mm-hmm. It's not just his alliance to the military. Paul's still playing all sides. We'll do this show for 20 seasons. We'll still never figure out exactly what
Who are
Paul's
you?
game is. Yeah. We're going to find I'm a quadruple agent, Paul.
It turns out he's secretly working for the Russian government. And
Yeah, you never know in this show. So, getting back to the heartbreak of this episode.
Yes.
So, Hellena is, again, she's crazy, but she's always crazy brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And again, after Sara tells her that story about Kira, I'm like, she's got Hellena back on her side, and she knows Helena's got a plan, and they're gonna the sisters, they're gonna bust out of there.
We're gonna steal some tweezers. I'm gonna butter myself up, and we're gonna be A-okay.
how great was that when you find out what's in the little secret cubby that
Because
she
it's
has?
just tons of
I was
butter.
like, what is she hiding? And she had mentioned butter.
She's going to
before.
melt all your butter.
Yeah.
It's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. And, you gotta love a scene where someone's greasing themselves up. So there you go. Helena is brilliant. Helena's crazy, but Helena's brilliant.
I
And
will say I am concerned about all the crazy stunts that she's doing while she's pregnant.
I was thinking about
am
that too.
Very concerned.
I was thinking, because this is she's hanging out of that.
I am cool
scaling
with
up the
it.
building.
Let that. I'm sorry. It is a Johansson baby. If that baby is forfeit, I'm not gonna be super sad.
But you know who's going to be super sad? Helena.
That's true.
No, that's the thing, is she cares about it.
Of course, further argument, should Hellena be raising a child? We know Hellena thinks she's going to be a good mother. She's said this, and she is good with children. But I mean, the day-to-day stuff, how can she deal with the day-to-day stuff of being a mother?
She would be fine if she had all of her sisters there to support her.
Sestras.
I mean, or at the very least, at the end of the day, she has to be living in a house with, like, Mrs. S and Sarah and Kira and
like, someone
all
else
of
would
them.
have to be there.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
You know, Felix is going to get... You know, each season, Felix gets stuck a long time in a clone storyline. He was with Hellena a little last season. Next season, Hellena and Felix raise a child together.
I did a tweet. I sent out a tweet Saturday night, and it was Orphan Black spoilers. Felix will never get enough screen time.
True story.
And you know what? Again, this week, he got more than he had been recently. And he's so good. Jordan is so good. And... I feel like they're not utilizing him enough, and I was very happy to see in the previews for next week he's going to see Rachel. So they're putting him in a dangerous situation anytime you're confronting Rachel. And clearly they're going to make him more proactive. And I imagine the second half of the season where they're looking for Sara, he's going to be more proactive.
Sure.
I mean, you got to figure he's going to do anything he can at that point.
Yeah, do a little bit more than just setting people up on dates.
Yeah.
Do you guys, do you think Hellena goes back for Sara?
I don't think so. I think Hellena, well, maybe, but I don't think she's going to go immediately back. I think she's going to find her way back.
She's a tactician. She's still there, but I think
maybe she goes to... She might even go as far as to get back to,
Yeah.
like, Mrs. S and people like that. Like, we might not see Hellena for 2 episodes, and then she shows up at Mrs. S's door, and it's like... And maybe she grabs, maybe she's angry. You did this to me. And she goes, the only reason I don't kill you is because Sarah's there. And I feel, yeah.
We actually had a comment on Twitter. Alicia Perez was wondering if we think that Helena is going to try to kill Mrs. S for what she did. I have no idea. I don't know what I think she will do. I honestly don't know. It's a coin toss with Helena. But I would hope that she goes back for Sara. And it wouldn't be the first time she told the little scorpion thing to bug her off.
Yeah.
So, and she went back to save somebody.
I mean, at the time that Helena got a conscience about what she had done, admittedly, it was too late. She had no choice but to leave at that point when she was on top of that wall and she was thinking about... Because... at that point, the base is looking for her. She would never get back to Sara in time. But
that's not to say that she won't hang around and wait, because that's something that we've seen Helena is very good at, is
she's patient.
Waiting and watching and taking note of everything.
She needs reinforcements, though, as far as I'm concerned. I also wonder...
And more butter.
Exactly. I also wonder this, and this is something that we had talked about a few episodes ago, that... Would they ever try, doing a swap? At one point I said, would Sara maybe try to use Rachel and try to swap for Hellena so they have somebody there? Maybe Hellena gets a similar idea. Maybe we have a thing where she's like, well, let's get dirty, pretty, sexy Rachel or whatever and bring her there as a trade. If they did a trade once before, why wouldn't they do it again? But... I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts with that scenario.
Yeah.
Also, I would just love to see a Helena-Rachel encounter at some point. So maybe that's just some wishful thinking.
Okay. Can we talk about Cosima?
Let's talk about Cosima's big date.
Yeah, I do not trust this woman. I love Ksenia Solo. She was the only part of Lost Girl that I was able to stand, and she was the best part of that show. I do not trust her as far as I can throw her.
We had another comment from Alicia asking that same question, whether or not we trust her.
Well, I hate to use my big prediction now, but since we're talking about it, not only do I don't trust her, I think she's Cosima's new monitor. And I think...
God damn you,
Like-
Delphine. Well,
I think, yes, set up by Delphine, both as a way to help her ex-girlfriend get over her and to be the new monitor. And monitors are always romantic.
Yeah. Well, I assumed that the person outside taking pictures was from Dyad. I assumed that through and through. But yeah, no, this woman, she's too good to be true, man. She can see into your soul.
She's a great masseuse.
And she fits
great
in
masseuse.
that scene to your soul. You know, we had talked a couple of weeks, the past few weeks, about how Cosima's getting a little more spiritual and stuff like that. So it was very interesting
That's interesting.
that she finds somebody who's into spiritualism. This when Cosima's starting to wonder about spirituality more, and not that she's questioning her science, but getting a little more.
Right, but if she met her on Sapphire, which is the lesbian version of Grindr, it's random. So unless Dyad hacked her Sapphire and made sure that this woman would come up, a woman whose profile and pictures she would absolutely have to swipe, like there's too many variables.
Do we know that Cosima contacted her first, or that? I mean, I've never used like a Tinder type thing.
Well, with Tinder, you both have to swipe right in order to be able to talk at all.
Okay, well, if this very attractive woman who's had as a profile tailor-made to Cosima swipes right, and then Cosima sees, this woman swiped me.
I'm just saying, it's just you're risking a lot, burning an ass.
We've seen Dyad though. The extent of their ability to kind of keep track on all of these different clones isn't to be underestimated. But you're right. It is a little contrived to have them manufactured that meet cute.
I'd forgotten about monitors by now.
Yeah, they manufacture. Look, Donnie and Allison have been together since college. Like, they manufacture everything, especially when it comes to your love life. Honestly, you've got a dating problem, talk to Dyad. They'll set you up with the perfect. Honestly, Dyad
you're
should
a clone. I can see the dating commercial now. Are you a clone and having problems with your love life? Come to
Everything
the Dyad
the
Institute.
same genetically.
I mean, they should open up a dating.
They'd certainly earn more money.
Speaking of commercials, I know that Allison wasn't in this episode, but have you guys seen the campaign commercial that the BBC put out? It's just the best.
Done
I need
by
more Orphan Black commercials
with a voiceover by Donnie. Which, I mean, they're clearly more than ever embracing. I mean, Allison's always been a little bit more of the comic relief to the show, but I feel they're really embracing it more than ever once they start putting stuff.
Donnie in to have them be a team. Oh, it's just it's hilarious.
You know, the other thing I loved about the Cosima date, it was Cosima is, you know, because she's always in her lab and she's so confident all the time. And again, this is why this, to me, maybe Tatiana Maslany's best episode, because not just all the great Sara and Hellena back and forth, but she showed a different side of Cosima.
The vulnerability.
Yeah.
High five, guys.
Yeah.
High five.
I mean, it was just the right amount of awkward and sincere and reserved that, like, you feel on these first dates. Like, it very much felt like a first date that was going too good to be true. Mm-hmm. You know, what first date when they get back to your place is asking you, tell me everything about your ex. Tell me about how somebody who's set up to help you get over your ex by your crazy ex and former monitor Delphine.
It's just too much, too many layers.
Now we're seeing Delphine next week on the show.
Thank goodness.
You know, and so that's good,
her.
and we'll see how that.
I wonder if I love Delphine. I think she's a great character. But if there's anything I've learned from this show, it's that you can't trust anyone. And I'm a little worried that being the new Rachel is corrupting her a little bit. Like, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Well, you know, if Anna Koppel was here, who I literally every episode would fight with about, I trusted Delphine, and she didn't trust. You know what's funny? Wait, and I know this is just kind of AfterBuzz, kind of insight to this panel, but Anna was here for the first episode. She missed the next 4. Who else missed the last 4 episodes? Delphine. Anna and Delphine
are the same person.
That's what it is.
Man, I can't wait to see how all of this develops.
So
you're gonna get tangled.
Go back the other way.
Okay. Turn the other way around.
I'm going.
Anyway,
jeez.
You're gonna break our studio.
What a day when they put it was in the smaller studio. Is the day we get into physical comedy.
All right.
But it was a point.
Slapstick at home.
Here's the thing. I still believe, and that Delphine, maybe she doesn't always handle it in the best way, but has their clone's best interest in mind, where Rachel didn't.
I
Sure.
think she has Cosima's best interest in mind. I know she's trying. She's because that was the whole thing with them being in a relationship.
That's why
is
they
you
broke
have to
up.
learn to love all of them. So I think she's going to try to have their best interest. But I've never fully trusted anybody in the show, especially somebody who used to be a monitor. Because it's not like she was stupid, because Donnie just doesn't know any better. Because, Delphine knows better. She's a very, very smart and intelligent woman. So to kind of play dumb or act like you were trying to do the right thing, I think she believes she does the right thing. And again, I think she has Cosima's best interest at heart. But I worry because she's human and fallible, just like everybody else. And she clearly has a grudge against certain types of people. So, again, I wonder how much power and authority Dyad has given her. And she's been gone for a while. So I'm just a little concerned about what she's bringing back to the table now that she's back. That's all.
Since we're talking about the future and we're speculating, is it time, perhaps?
Let's just do it. Let's go to predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Marc prediction. Marc will die by the end of this season. Either he dies, or he and Gracie ride off into the sunset and don't come back until the final season.
Or they both die.
But to me, I don't know why, he just seems like Marc is the right choice. He's marked for death.
He's gonna make a sacrifice, I think. Probably to save Gracie.
Yes.
Probably, and maybe even from this. I mean, here's the thing.
This is assuming Gracie can be saved.
I think Gracie can be saved. Because here's the thing. We're going to find out, I assume, in the next few episodes, we're going to find out about a slew of poor women who slept with these Castor clones who are dead. They're dead now. And Gracie is going to be the Cosima of these women, of where we have to find a way to save her. And they're going to have, I mean, you know what we see in the coming attraction, it didn't even really occur to me.
Because the Rachel thing is about saving Gracie.
It's about Gracie and not about, I assumed it had something to do with Sarah, but no, I bet you it is about saving Gracie. Mm-hmm. And if they have the full resources of Dyad and Dyad scientists like Delphine and Cosima helping them, I bet you they could crack this thing, but maybe they need something from Marc. Maybe that's how he's marked for that. Maybe they need, they needed bone marrow from Kira, but maybe they need something that will kill Marc.
A heart.
They need. Now
he's going to literally give her his heart.
Yes.
And much like, again, bring back a Game of Clones, she has to sit there and eat this whole heart in order to.
It's the only way.
Yeah. But no, I think you're dead on about Marc there, and that wasn't. That pun was not intended.
Shame on you.
You got any predictions?
Just that Delphine is going to be, I think she's still on a little bit of a power trip. I think we saw that when she was digging her finger into Rachel's eye. So I think being the new Rachel is maybe corrupts her a little bit. I don't know. And that might have been another reason why she broke up with Cosima in the first place, is she's like, I got to leave that part of myself behind if I'm going to do what I have to do. Poor Sarah, she's still stuck there. I think she's going to be stuck there for at least another 2 episodes.
Yeah, or whatever.
I don't mind though, because Sarah tends to learn a lot, and I would like to learn a lot more about what's going on there.
And I think Allison is going to learn a lot of lessons about what it's like being a hardcore drug dealer.
Well, I think she's going to learn a lot of lessons about being
working with your ex.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be I think that's going to be the tougher thing for her than the drug dealing.
I agree. He is thirsty. Are you aware of this term, thirsty?
I've heard people use it, and I've only extrapolated what it means from them using it, but I've never been given the exact definition.
Thirsty. It's he wants it.
Yeah.
He's
That's
got
what
a
I
thirst.
assumed it meant.
Yeah.
A thirst for Allison Hendricks.
Yes,
but
that's true.
Then again, don't we all? So I mean, I already kind of gave my big prediction that I
Got
think
a fever. The only prescription is Allison.
more Allison Hendricks. I already gave my big prediction. I guess we've covered everything with the escape and everything. Any other loose ends?
Just that this was a great episode.
This is, again, the second it was over, I tweeted out the hashtag Emmy for Maslany because she needs to win one. So, yeah, that's it for this week, I guess. Next week Anna will be here. We've had such great chemistry, and then she's going to come along and ruin it all.
She says it you say it every week. Next week Anna's going to be here. Don't say it. Maybe it'll come true.
It's your fault every week.
Okay, well then, Matt, why don't you tell the people?
Sure. If you like me, if you like what you see here, or what you hear here, or you've heard or seen me somewhere else, and you're not following me on Twitter, what's wrong with you? Go to Twitter, type in the name Matt Lieberman, at Matt Lieberman, MattLieberman, and you will not regret that. Also, go to SourceFed, where I do news and comedy 7 days a week. SourceFed Nerd, where I get to review TV shows and other fun stuff. LieberFriends.com, at Vice Vlogs 5 days a week.
Follow this man.
Follow this man to the ends of the earth.
Megan.
First of all, thank you to everybody who participated in the Twitter hashtag and on the live chat on YouTube. You guys are great. And you can tweet at me at the Menguin. That's TheMenguin. I'm also on a bunch of shows here at AfterBuzz, including Turn later on tonight. We're going to get started a little later, so sorry about that. Bunch of other shows. And I've started writing articles for the movie Chick with 2 Ks. Be sure to check those out.
Excellent. And you can follow me on Twitter at The Real Will Link. And you know what? Listen to I got a podcast. You like hearing me talk here? Listen to Will Sean Podcast. It's a pop culture comedy.
Will
Yeah, Will Sean Podcast?
Guess
it's
what?
Always a question.
Spoiler, we do. I host it with a guy named Sean. We talk about pop culture too, sometimes even Orphan Black, so give it a listen. Until then, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
The question is intentional.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Clone you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.